You are listening to the Cyclical Fitness Podcast, where we discuss female physiology, hormones, training methods, mindset, and bio-optimization strategies so that you can craft the healthy lifestyle of your dreams with lasting results. I'm Cody, pharmacist, girl mom, ×2, coach, hobby addict, and lover of coffee and dry farm wines. Creatine for Women, everything you need to know to calm your fears about the scary supplement that is creatine. We are discussing what creatine is, its benefits, and debunk some myths associated with this supplement because to this day, every time I post about creatine, I get concerns, I hear myths, I hear people say, oh, that's from bodybuilders, that's for gym bros, that's not for me. So today we are talking about creatine, particularly for women. What is it? What kind should you be taking if you decide to take creatine? So let's talk about what it is. Creatine helps our cells produce energy. It's not magic. It doesn't, make us bigger. It's not a steroid. It makes the work that we do during exercise easier by increasing the output, by providing energy. It's already present in our body. Most of the stores are going to be in muscle. We also store some in the brain, and we consume it through meat and seafood. But even so, it is difficult to have our creatine stores completely topped off, even when we're consuming meat. And women tend not to consume as much dietary creatine, particularly if they're not eating meat. So supplementation can be really helpful for women, vegans, vegetarians. There are a few different forms of creatine on the market that can sometimes cause confusion. Creatine monohydrate is the molecule that looks identical to the molecule released by the liver inside the human body. This way, our body can't distinguish it from itself, and it won't see it as foreign or use it in an unintended way. This really reminds me of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy compared to fake hormones found in birth control pills, right? Because in bioidentical hormone replacement that's synthesized in a lab, they make the molecule look exactly like our hormones that already are in our body. Whereas in birth control, those molecules look different. That's a progestin, and it acts differently in the body. And because we can't know every single reaction that goes on in the body, we're a little bit behind. We don't know how it might act by accident. So it's really important to consume the molecule that looks just like the molecule our body makes, and that is creatine monohydrate. And also the research, for the most part, has been done on creatine monohydrate. So we want to stick to that because this includes studies on safety and effectiveness. So until there's more literature on other forms, my go-to is always going to be creatine monohydrate. And I love the product made by Thorne. It's all the third-party tested. It's not going to have contaminants, and they have the powder form, which gets pulled into the cell faster and easier than like a capsule or something like that. So let's get into the benefits. I know everyone's pretty aware, or you might have an inkling that it helps with strength, muscle, lean mass, that kind of thing. But I really want to get right into the brain health benefits because this is really important to me. And in individuals with depression, anxiety, and PTSD, their brain creatine levels are lower. So it follows that maybe if we increase those creatine levels, that these types of things would be helped. And the science is still new, but currently supplementation seems to have a positive effect on these conditions. So creatine is particularly helpful for cognition and memory in older individuals, especially if they are stress and or sleep deprived. So when your brain is sleep deprived, or you got a lot of anxiety, you're really stressed, there's a big difference that can be made there because there's such a gap in performance. So introducing creatine can really help in those states. Just as a quick diversion, because I do know that we have a lot of younger female athletes, and concussions and brain injuries are prevalent. There has been studies done that showed when children suffer from a head trauma injury and they were split into a creatine and placebo group, the creatine group saw a massive improvement in speech, cognition, and way of life. So if you do have an athlete that suffers from a concussion or head trauma, it's super important to get creatine going right away because it does take longer for that to cross into the brain and have a benefit. Those studies in children are limited, but the ones that have been conducted show great benefits. So it is easier to get creatine into the muscle than into the brain because it enters our body. It can kind of just go right into the muscle. But with the brain, we have a barrier there, the blood-brain barrier. It's supposed to keep out foreign bodies, and it makes its own creatine. It's a little bit harder to get exogenous or external creatine into the brain. This means it takes longer and a higher dose for it to build up in the brain. The recommended dose for brain and bone health is going to be about 7 to 10 grams a day. This is higher than that 3 to 5 gram a day recommendation you'll see for a performance aspect. I choose to go with 10 grams split into 2 doses throughout the day because my scoop is 5 grams and it's easier for me to just do that twice than it is to mess around with figuring out, a smaller measurement, and there's been no negative side effects shown at that higher dose. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna go with the higher one. And I'm very creatine centric, so I just go with that 10 grams. But if you do like to get really granular with it and you like to know exactly what you should be doing, there's a 0.1 gram per kilogram of body weight is the exact recommended amount if you're really not trying to overshoot it at all. You can actually go ahead and do the math. You take your body weight in pounds, you divide that by 2.2 to get kilograms, and you multiply that by 0.1 to get the number of grams that you're going to want to be taking a day for brain and mental health benefits. And then at that same dose, we have bone health benefits in combination with resistance training. So with the brain, you can take creatine and you'll see these benefits without doing anything else. But with the muscle and the bone, you need to take creatine in combination with your resistance training. There was a decrease in bone mineral density loss and an increase in bone strength. As we get older, falls and broken bones should be front of mind because they lead to a rapid decrease in quality of life when they're experienced. So not only should you be taking creatine, but your aging loved ones should probably be taking it too. As far as athletes go, most of us know that creatine is great for strength and lean mass when combined with resistance training, but its benefits don't just stop there. There's an increase in both aerobic and anaerobic performance for athletes, and for that matter, anyone who moves their body on purpose, right? You're an athlete. Creatine improves mitochondrial function, which helps our ability to utilize oxygen. This can be shown with a VO2 max reading would improve. Supplementation or adequate dietary intake increases the amount of time it takes to reach fatigue while exercising. Agility, balance, power, and speed in soccer players have been shown improvements along with an increase in skill and performance markers of other sports. When it comes to injuries, creatine is considered anti-catabolic, meaning it decreases muscle protein breakdown, which is going to speed up muscle recovery. So really, it's all around good supplement for athletes in every aspect. I'm going to go ahead to talk about pregnancy. Dr. Abby Smith Ryan, a researcher in this field, said that creatine is the best pregnancy supplement your doctor will never tell you to take. I am not your doctor. I cannot recommend anything. Your doctor is not going to recommend it either, but I am going to put this information out in the world for you to have the right to make your own choices for your own body. Creatine stores in our body are greatly reduced during pregnancy because there is such a high energy metabolic demand while growing a human being. No kidding, right? And a link has been found between low birth weights and preterm births when creatine stores are low. The fetus, especially the brain of the fetus, develops a lot better with an adequate amount of creatine. To date, studies have only been done in animals and not humans. Again, I'm not your doctor. I can't give you advice. I will say for me, if I were to get pregnant again, I would remain on my creatine regimen. I would say that at minimum, making sure your diet is rich in creatine is important for a healthy pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience. Let's talk about bloating. I hear constantly like, oh no, I don't want to go on creatine. It's going to make me bloat. It's going to get me huge and I'm going to get a bunch of water weight. The structure of creatine pulls water into the cell intracellularly. In men, there are significant gains in body mass with loading doses of creatine. So, two ways you can mitigate any potential bloating or water retention effects are to A, not be a man, as there was no increase in body mass shown with 5 days of a loading dose during any cycle phase, or B, skip the loading dose and go straight into a daily dose of that 0.1 gram per kilogram per day and let it slowly build up in your body. This will take about a month for it to accumulate. But even in men, it looks like doing it this way results in barely any water retention. You aren't going to want to skip the loading dose if you're an athlete or you're preparing for a competition. You're going to want to load that creatine on. But if you're not and you just want to let it slowly build up in your system, you don't have to worry about any bloating effects. So, the menstrual cycle. How can creatine benefit during each phase of the menstrual cycle? During our period, the menstrual phase is an inflammatory phase because of its inflammatory markers are the thing that allows the uterine lining to be shed. So often this inflammatory process overshoots and we experience symptoms like cramping and muscle soreness. One of the reasons why the cycle sinkers of Instagram and TikTok say that you should not weightlift during your period or resistance train is because of the increased incidence of DOMS or delayed onset muscle soreness. It's one of the only scientific reasons I've ever heard that you shouldn't train during your period other than some made up cortisol theories. But this is not something that should keep you from training. If you experience DOMS, lowering your exercise volume slightly so that you can get back into the gym quicker is your first step. And honestly, the more you train, the less you're going to experience delayed onset muscle soreness. It's really when you are introducing a new exercise or you're new to training that soreness really happens. Additionally, creatine supplementation decreases this post-exercise inflammation and can help with the higher DOM incidence during your period. Inflammation tends to be something that we want actually to benefit from during our training. That's why deliberate cold exposure, although it can help you recover in order to perform better, it's not the greatest for adaptation because it reduces inflammation so much that it blunts the benefits. Inflammation is not always bad. But studies on creatine, however, show that it aids in exercise benefits that adaptation while also reducing post-exercise inflammation. So it's a win-win. And it means that you don't have to take too many rest days recovering from soreness because creatine is going to help mitigate any of those effects that you may experience more during your period. During the follicular phase, the rest of the follicular phase, and into ovulation, creatine is going to have those baseline benefits that it always has of increasing performance, recovery, mental health. For some women, this is a theory, it's not science, but for some reason around ovulation, there's a dip in mood. It's said to be caused by the sensitizing effect of estrogen, can be really overstimulating for some women, and then that estrogen withdrawal, as it drops back down, can cause withdrawal symptoms. This dip in mood can potentially be mitigated with the anti-anxiety and central nervous system effects of creatine. That's not proven. That is a theory. But in the luteal phase, this is really where we can benefit so much from creatine. Progesterone is the star of the luteal phase, and with it comes a shift toward a catabolic environment or a more of a prevalence of lean mass breakdown. And this is something that we do not want. We want to hold on to our lean mass. We want to shed fat. We want to hold on to the muscle. This is said to be because we require those building blocks to build up the uterine lining, so we're in a more catabolic state. But creatine is anti-catabolic. It decreases muscle protein breakdown, which can help mitigate progesterone's effects. Progesterone and estrogen also seem to pull water out of the cell during the luteal phase, which is especially bad during this phase because our basal body temperature is higher. And we need that intracellular hydration to cool the body, to prevent fatigue, and allow us to put in more work. And creatine pulls that water back into the cell. So its presence is especially beneficial during this phase. It can maybe help mitigate some of the effects that sometimes in our luteal phase, everything seems so freaking heavy, so freaking hard. You're just like, ugh. So along with nutrition, creatine can help mitigate those effects. And then we have the late luteal phase where our hormones come back down. A lot of the symptoms women experience in the late luteal phase are central nervous system issues caused by the drop of and withdrawal effects from hormones. And creatine can boost mood and cognition in the brain, especially when we are under duress from stress and lack of sleep, both issues that come up prior to getting our period. So fact of the matter is creatine should be taken every single day, cycle round, but it's just kind of cool to know the individual benefits that can creep up during each phase. Postmenopausal women, perimenopausal women, but especially postmenopausal, because they can benefit from creatine more than a lot of the other populations because of the loss of anabolic hormone that's going on, the loss of estrogen, and the loss of the calming hormone progesterone. Postmenopause, because of this loss, is associated with loss of bone, brain, and muscle health. Given the positive effects that creatine has on each of these aspects, if you are over 50, if you're over 40, you should really consider supplementing. Creatine is going to be particularly helpful for power type strength. And power is something that we lose even more rapidly than muscle mass as we age. Maintaining our power helps with the rapid movement required to catch ourselves if we trip or fall. So if you're falling, you want to be able to take that quick step with your leg to catch yourself so you don't go down. And if you do go down, you want to be able to reach out your arm and catch yourself. And that's a quick, strong, power-based movement that's going to prevent serious injury. So it's something that we really want to think about. You do want to do power-based training. That's why in my at-home workout program, Her Home Fit, we have power in every single workout. It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to be doing cleans and snatches. Like, there's smaller power-based movements that you can start off with, but it's really important to start incorporating them because it's not only muscle that we lose, it's our ability to maintain power within that muscle. They have given postmenopausal women high doses of creatine monohydrate for 2 years straight with no negative side effects. So you can rest assured that it's very safe, particularly in this population. So I hear people talking about responders and non-responders. They'll be like, oh, it doesn't work. I'm a non-responder. I'm a hyper-responder. And all that this means simply is how well creatine supplementation works for you. The good news is that if you are a non-responder to supplemental creatine, it's likely because you don't really need it. We all have a maximum storage capacity of creatine in the muscle, which is primarily where creatine is stored. So if you consume a lot of dietary creatine, the room for stored creatine is already being occupied. So taking additional creatine supplementation on top of that is probably not going to help you as much. But women and vegans in general might be a hyper responder because they're not consuming as much dietary creatine. So they have a lot of storage space in their muscles for extra creatine to have a place to go and stay and work. This means that women, vegan, vegetarians, they're typically going to respond really well and derive a large benefit from creatine supplementation. Almost all, or not all, creatine supplementation that I'm aware of is vegan products, so it's really a win-win for the plant-based eaters out there. Will creatine make me bulky? Will it make me blow up? When I speak to women in real life about creatine supplementation, the first comment is usually something like, oh man, like my husband's bodybuilding days. There's a prevailing myth out there that creatine will make you bulky, stemming from seeing bulky bodybuilders promoting creatine use. However, those men are not getting bulky from creatine. They are often using other substances, many of which are, not even legal. They also rely on the help of natural and synthetic testosterone, engage in a large volume of intense training, and consume a huge surplus of calories. None of these things that most of us are partaking in, let alone all at once. Furthermore, there is a water weight gain seen in men upon a loading dose that, again, we just don't see in women. Is creatine safe? You'll often hear people talk about how creatine can damage your kidneys. However, current advice now states that it's not damaging, but you should avoid it if you have any kidney issues, because people are trying to just, check the boxes. They don't want to get in trouble. But here's the thing. Our kidneys rely on creatine to function properly. Dr. Kandow, who studies creatine, states that as of right now, it's the safest and most effective compound that we can take, even in diseased individual. Even if you have damaged kidneys or liver, it's going to be beneficial. What we do need to be careful of is the quality and purity of the product we are purchasing. Some companies have and will add other things to creatine that are not always safe or legal to give the illusion that their product works better. I love Thorne. I'll link to my product on Amazon. It's Thorne Creatine Monohydrate because it is a pure, powdered, high quality, third party tested. A lot of times that's the exact product that they're using in the studies. There are also other products like pre-workout that pile on several different ingredients mixed in along with creatine. I don't love this approach because we don't know if there's an interference effect amongst different ingredients. Caffeine, for example, has been shown to have an interference effect with creatine. So we don't want to try. We want to try and avoid mixing them together. It's not gonna, if you're not really worried about like the brain benefits and the bone benefits, then it doesn't really matter, because I don't think acutely it really has an impact on performance and its effect on the muscle, but there is somewhat of an interference effect with other mechanisms. That being said, adding it to your high quality whey protein is said to be fine. So I do throw my creatine in with my protein shake. But we just want to try and keep it away from any of the other supplements that you're taking, because we're not, like, all these things haven't been studied, so we don't know what interferes with what. You shouldn't really pile it on altogether. Is creatine a steroid? It's not an anabolic steroid. It is 3 amino acids that provide benefits. And in muscle, they need to be activated by hard work. They don't just spontaneously help muscle grow or get stronger, like an anabolic steroid would. In the brain, it will provide benefits regardless if you're doing any kind of work or resistance training. However, it will not just magically make you bigger. So it's not a steroid. It aids in the parameters that can help you get more out of the work you're already putting in. There can be steroid-like contaminants in certain brands of creatine, which again, it's just why it's important to get a third-party tested pure creatine monohydrate. So how much should we take? When should we take it? How should we take it? All the things. A loading dose has typically been recommended. This means taking a much higher daily dose than you normally would for a period of time, usually 20 grams across the day for 5 days, and then starting your daily consumption, 3 to 5 grams per day. If you're just worried about performance, 7 to 10 grams a day to further the benefits into bone and brain health. In my personal opinion, I think this complicates things, so I usually just go into a daily maintenance dose, skip the loading dose, let it build in my system. This can also mitigate, again, that potential bloat that is usually seen in men when they utilize a loading dose. One reason you might consider the loading dose is if you're an athlete or you have a big competition coming up and you want to make sure your stores are completely saturated. There has been significant research on when to take creatine, the timing, whether it should be before training or after training, but very little that has seen focuses on women. It used to be thought that taking creatine immediately post-workout might have added benefit, but in the most recent studies, they have found that there is absolutely zero difference between taking creatine before, during, or after a workout. The most important thing is just to stay consistent with daily creatine supplementation. Getting lost in the weeds about when to take it, in my experience, can make it so that doses are missed, and that's just not something that we want. So I hope that I have officially convinced you not to be afraid of creatine and that it might be worth taking or worth trying. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok, Dr. Cody Galfit. I'll also add a link to join the waitlist for the Cyclical Fitness Method Founders Launch that's going to be releasing soon. I hope you all have a wonderful day.